It's no secret that I absolutely love Kaguya-sama Love is War. Hell, I feel like I mention it at least once per video. At this point, it might as well become a part of my brand identity. Season 3 is finished, and it brought one of, if not, the best arc of the series into the animated world. And with it, a new question for me to ponder. Kaguya very quickly reached the top of my list when I first watched it, almost instantly taking 3rd place and holding on to that position confidently. But now as I take a step back and analyze the show, I've begun to ask myself, maybe it needs an even higher placement. For those of you who have no idea what I'm talking about, you clearly haven't seen my best performing video, and have also been living under an actual boulder. Either way, as a quick recap, Kaguya-sama Love is War, also known as Kaguya-sama Wants to be Confessed to, is a rom-com originally written and illustrated by mangaka Aka Akasaka. That's a mouthful. It follows our two main characters, Kaguya Shinomiya and Miyuki Shirogane, as they come up with increasingly ridiculous schemes to make the other confess their love to them to prove who's the more dominant one. Well, at least that's what they want you to think at the beginning. From the get-go, we're given a short narration on how love is war. Funny, right? It's the title. And then there's a clear winner and loser in every relationship. And we're shown that our main characters believe this idea. But as the series progresses, we see them fall for each other more and more, and the game begins to change. What starts as, oh, I'd be okay with dating them if they begged me, switches to, I need them to confess because my fears prevent me. The idea of being presented with a simple explanation that changes as we dive deeper is present throughout the whole series, especially within the characters. Akasaka introduces us to each member of the cast as a common character trope, but very quickly pulls away that veil as he explores the reasoning behind each character's actions, and lets them grow and change. It's the same feeling as when you meet someone. Your first impression of them is likely to be wildly different from who they actually are once you get to know them better. And that's what I think is the most important part of the Kaguya cast. Despite being super elites at a prestigious high school who get into wacky-ass situations on an almost daily basis, they're all people you could actually be friends with because, in a sense, they're written as if they were new friends you've only begun to learn about. But I spent too long beating around the bush. I can tell you how great these characters are as much as I want, but it won't matter unless I actually show you why they're so great. Of course, to do that, I am going to have to put up a spoiler warning. The rest of this video is going to be heavily focused on major plot points of the show, so if you haven't watched it yet, fucking do that now! This is your only warning! Alright, everyone good? Well, grab your nearest body pillow or $200 Bunny Kaguya figure and get comfy as I show you why Love is War's cast is the real beauty of the show. In the first season, we got the fireworks episode, in which we got one of the best emotional scenes. Yet, despite the events, the student council dynamic remained relatively untouched. The biggest development we get during this season actually comes not from our main pair, but from Ishigami. During the first exam arc, Kaguya overhears that Ishigami will have to repeat a grade and decides to help him study. What originally starts as a goofy chapter intent on bullying Ishigami ends up taking a serious turn as we get a very short peek into his past. While we don't get to learn the full story, we do learn of an incident he was involved in that caused the student body to outcast him. This scene also has Kaguya standing up for Ishigami and calling out those insulting him, which creates a new sibling-esque dynamic between the two. That said, I can't really say we get any more major developments till Season 2. Season 2 can be divided roughly into 3 parts: Student Council shenanigans, Miko Ino's introduction, and the Ishigami arc. While Ino's introduction does shake up the formula a bit, her time in this season is mostly delegated to setting up interest in her past connection with Ishigami. Speaking of which, Ishigami is a powerhouse this season, delivering one of the best arcs the series has ever gotten, probably in my top 3. It all starts when everyone's favorite normie-hating NEET joins the school cheer team. Okay, I'll admit it comes out of left field. Anyways, Ishigami joins the cheer team, a group he's hated for always being so lively and happy because he thinks to himself that maybe the reason they're so lively and happy is because they're part of the cheer team. And so he decides to see for himself. Throughout this, we get some more of that sibling dynamic between Kaguya and Ishigami I was talking about earlier, but this arc really shines during the sports festival. Once again, under the guise of your normal silly chapters, the sports festival starts with some fun, cute moments until we reach Ishigami's cheer performance, which goes off without a hitch. Ishigami ends up being right in his original theory about the cheer team, as he begins to realize this is the best sports festival he's ever had. A mysterious stranger arrives, someone Ishigami seems to know all too well. Her name is Kyoko Utomo, and she seems to be deeply connected to Ishigami's past incidents. Just then, the cheer captain calls for Ishigami. He sprained his ankle and needs Ishigami to replace him in the relay race. The expectations of everyone have been placed onto him, and he could only imagine himself failing. And it's in this moment of panic we finally get to learn what the incident is. In middle school, Kyoko was simply a very nice classmate, someone who had helped Ishigami several times. At the time, she had a boyfriend, Ko Ogino. Ishigami had discovered that Ogino had been cheating and decided to call him out for it. Ogino, trying to save his own ass, offered lewd images of Kyoko to him, and he simply snapped. Ishigami had begun beating Ogino in front of his whole class. Okino quickly manipulates the situation and spins the lie that Ishigami was a stalker of Kyoko that wanted to get rid of her boyfriend. And just like that, the entire school turned on him. He gets suspended and is told to write an apology he can't bring himself to write. He can't even bring himself to tell the truth to anybody out of fear Okino would hurt Kyoko. So months pass, and junior high graduation passes. But by Ino's efforts, he's allowed to move on to high school, which catches the eye of the student council, and after conducting some research, Shirogane shows up to his room having deduced the whole story. Ishigami finally being able to let it all out, he could finally hear that he wasn't crazy. And Shirogane tells him the words he should be saying, instead of an apology. And we finally cut back to the sports festival. Ishigami stands waiting for the baton, being the anchor of the race, and Kyoko stands on the sidelines, spewing insult after insult towards him, until finally, right as he receives the baton, he recalls the words Shirogane told him to say. Of course, there's many different translations of this, but my personal favorite? Ishigami, with his newfound determination, starts running. He has to prove himself. He has to prove he's not crazy. He has to win. But he doesn't, and he begins relapsing, calling himself useless over and over again. But the cheer squad surrounds him, his friends surround him, and they support him, and he finally realizes that he's not in middle school anymore. He's surrounded by people who care for him. A detail I've yet to mention is the importance of chapter titles in this series. Specifically in this case, whenever we refer to Ishigami's past, we've been given the title, thus, Yu Ishigami closed his eyes. And a detail that's kinda difficult to notice until it's made clear to you is that everyone around Ishigami is drawn without eyes, until finally he realizes that things are different, and we can finally see the eyes and full faces of everyone. Yu Ishigami has finally opened his eyes. And that's all for a guy who's not even the main focus of the story. So, before I move on, I'm gonna go back on my word and drop second spoiler warning. If for some reason you chose to ignore my first warning and hearing Ishigami's story has gotten you intrigued, stop this video and start fucking watching already, you crazy psycho. Good god. On the other hand, if you've yet to see Season 3, this is also your warning. I will not be holding back when it comes to talking about the developments and character moments of Season 3, which there are a lot of. Final chance? Alright, let's go. The third season of Kaguya wastes no time in getting to explore its characters deeper, with its first target being the fan favorite second best girl, Hayasaka. Hayasaka's story is interesting as it starts off based on a chapter from Season 2, in which Hayasaka bets she can make Shirogane fall for her. Once again, what starts off as a comedic setup quickly breaks down when Hayasaka and Shirogane are alone, and Hayasaka drops her act, revealing she's Kaguya's maid, but also meant to keep tabs on all her friends, which is a large step for the character already. However, she also drops the line, if you don't put on an act, you won't be loved. This sets Shirogane into motion as he disagrees with her statement, but can't find the right way to express it, leading to a, rap episode? Fun fact, did you know you can actually see Shirogane and Fujiwara practicing in earlier episodes? Anyways, Shirogane absolutely nails it with the core message of his rap about being who you are and to stop hiding behind so many masks. And after an insulting rap from Kaguya, Hayasaka takes the stage to let her true feelings show. It's cathartic to watch Hayasaka finally lay out all the frustrating things Kaguya has done or made her do, and finally gives the character some stronger depth than sassy, overworked maid. I should add this episode also goes crazy with its shots, and really helps make the lyrics stand out even more, even if the entire premise is, well, goofy as shit. Next up, we're going back to Ishigami, who's given a love interest in Tsubame Koyasu. More than that, however, he's given a challenge straight from Kaguya. Once again, the chapter titles come into play, dubbing this as Kaguya's Impossible Challenge, The Swallow's Cowrie, a reference to the legend of the Moon Princess Kaguya, and one of the trials she puts one of her suitors against. Anyways, Tsubame will come into play later. The main point here is that Ishigami is given a focus for the next arc. Speaking of which, the Culture Festival arc runs from episodes 7 to 13, or chapters 115 to 137, but I argue it actually starts on episode 5, or chapter 111, the parent-teacher conferences, where we get bombed with devastating news. Kaguya will continue on to Shueisha's college, while Shirogane is planning on going overseas to Stanford. I love this chapter. More specifically, its last lines. Not everyone will walk the same path, and the countdown till separation has begun. But above all else, my favorite line is the very last one, from Shirogane himself. When I originally read this line, it gave me chills. When I watched this line get said, even knowing what was going to happen, I got chills. It's just a display of raw determination. It fills me personally with hype, and I can guarantee it's filled others with the same feeling. Shirogane is the only one who knows how little time they have left together, and he's planned to make every second count. With this, the Culture Festival arc starts, and no chapter is off limits from Akasaka's genius, and Shirogane just goes absolutely buck wild with confidence. The community has quite literally crowned him as Chad Gane for the rest of this arc. we're first met with episodes on Shirogane trying to become better as a person, to become a man worthy of Kaguya. Remember this, it'll be important later. We also get to see Ino developed further, as she dreams of holding a bonfire for the culture festival. Despite knowing the dangers, we get to see the positive side of her stubbornness, as she fights to get her plan approved, all for the sake of the students. We get an episode from the perspective of the Mass Media Club, where they hold some interviews before the festival starts. We learn Kaguya starting the bonfire with a flaming arrow, and that the president is making a papier-mâché dragon around some ball thing on the roof. The episode's weird, and on its own doesn't mean much, but it's some excellent setup for what's to come. For some more setup, we also learn about a legend surrounding the Culture Festival. If someone gives a heart-shaped item to the one they love during the event, their love will be eternal. Of course, it's just a silly rumor, but that's enough to get Kaguya's wheels turning, and sets up her main focus. To get a heart from Shirogane, or to secretly give him one. But as Hayasaka calls out, secretly giving him something would qualify as a confession, which would imply that... God, this moment rocks! Anyways, moving on. We're already running high on time, and we're not even at the Culture Festival yet, but it's almost time. Right before the Culture Festival starts, Kaguya rejects the idea that the first one to fall in love loses, and begins planning her confession. But let's take a step back and look back at that idea, because as the man Shirogane says himself, if the first one to fall in love loses, he'd lost a long time ago. For the first time ever, we get to see what Kaguya and Shirogane's freshman year was like, and how their relationship originally started. Shirogane was more delinquent-like, getting in based on lottery and hating the elites of the school. Kaguya is exactly the kind of person he should hate. But after seeing her save a girl from a muddy swamp, something changes. He's fallen for her, but he doesn't think he's near her level, wherein we see his determination come forth as he makes a bet to beat Kaguya on the exams. The chapter is full of heart and really begins to cement our main characters' motivations and reasonings behind their actions, but before we get to the destination, we have some detours. With the festival officially starting, it's mostly fluff. Cute moments of Kaguya trying her last-ditch efforts to make Shirogane confess, and him being entirely unaffected, but tons of interesting stuff still happens. Ishigami accidentally confesses to Tsubame by giving her a heart-shaped cookie, to which she doesn't know how to respond. This creates tension for the rest of the arc, as if Ishigami is rejected, it'd be cruel for his friends to start dating. With the fans having been blocked by Fujiwara for so long, this creates a sense of dread, a possible explanation for why the confession wouldn't go through despite all of this planning. Nonetheless, we move on to the second day. A phantom thief has stolen every heart balloon at the festival, and Fujiwara is on the case. But that couldn't be too important, could it? What is more important is that we got some more fluff between Kaguya and Shirogane, though that doesn't last long as reality sets in. Shirogane has been accepted to Stanford, and he'll be skipping a year to join. The show paints a very real picture at the prospect of a friend or a loved one moving. It's exciting, yet painful to know you'll have to say goodbye eventually. Once again, it's a very real feeling that the story draws from its audience that contributes to its excellence. Either way, this information has steeled Kaguya's resolve, as her and Hayasaka create the perfect plan to confess. But just like that, Shirogane has completely vanished. This once again builds tension, it builds hype. Fear overtakes Kaguya. It overtakes the reader. The search continues while we see what's going on with Ishigami and Tsubame. Tsubame has decided to hold off on giving her an answer, releasing a small weight off of the audience's shoulders, but it doesn't matter much, as we had just had Shirogane's disappearance placed on us. And as we jump back to Kaguya, her perfect plan to confess has gone up in flames, just as the bonfire does. It's slightly solemn, despite the joy the bonfire brings. Yet suddenly, the Phantom Thief returns, and has stolen that weird ball thing from earlier, the horror! But more importantly, our thief is revealed to be Shirogane. And oh wow, what a shocker, didn't see that one coming. Look, this story is amazing and beautiful because of its characters and emotion, not its surprise reveals. Either way, Kaguya deduces the thief almost instantly, and begins to make her way to her destination, the clock tower. Not only is everything from here out absolutely beautiful to a visual degree, the scenes themselves take themselves seriously to give this moment the sheer weight it deserves. Love is terrifying. You want it to be perfect, meaning every action you make is stressed upon. Our focus starts on Kaguya and her thoughts, her fears. She fears that she's a bad person. She used to view people as assets, things to be manipulated or controlled. In her mind, even if she's changed in her time from the student council, no one could ever loved a person like her. So why would Shirogane be any different? What if he was just being nice to her and she misinterpreted his actual feelings? It's a mentality many are used to. Her pain and fear hit home for so many because of how common it is. It's enough to make someone tear up. It's enough to make Kaguya tear up. Like many others, her fear has taken a hold of her and she can't speak a single word. All we're left with is her thoughts. What she wants to say but can't. Thoughts I assure you, many have thought in their life. In the silence and tears, Shirogane puts into motion his big surprise. That weird ball thing is set off, and as it gets close enough to the bonfire, it pops, releasing all the stolen heart balloons into the night sky, carried by the updraft. And I told you this shit was pretty, god damn it! And this is another part of what makes this all beautiful. Every little thing connects to this big moment. Cosplay, the balloons, his connections, the mystery to lead Fujiwara away, the jewel, the legend, the bonfire. Every single thing was planned out for this moment. And now we get to see Shiragane's fear. Shiragane is afraid of his inferiority. Kaguya's status is so far above him. She's rich, intelligent, talented. Shiragane wants to stand on equal footing one day, but that's his exact reasoning why he can't confess. If he were to be rejected, the gap between them would only grow. Just like Kaguya, he stands speechless. However, instead of only being able to convey his emotions through his face, he instead has his whole master plan blossoming around them. The heart balloons are the words he can't say, but there is something he can't say with balloons. Something that requires words. It's a question that's more important than a confession. The absolute hype and joy I felt during my first read of this scene was immense. When this episode aired, I watched it with friends and the excitement was unreal. The deadline fear has been removed, but it's not over yet. After all, Shiragane offered a prize of anything to whoever caught the thief. And Kaguya takes that prize. God, my body is melting from joy. But the only reason I've reached a state like this is because of how real these characters are. Their fears, their struggles, they're all so common, so normal, that it makes you forget that these two are supposed to be geniuses. Despite being the top of the top, they're still people, just like us. Kaguya-sama's beauty comes from finding the relatability in the absurd. A confession like this would never happen in real life, but the motives, the fears, the experiences, they're all just so real. Akasaka makes you forget how crazy the world he's created is, how insane this scene is, all for this moment to show a real, genuine romance. This arc, this story is one of the best I have ever experienced. Simply put, it's ultra romantic. This video serves two purposes, as both a review of Kaguya's third season, as well as a love letter to the series as a whole. The manga is only 6 chapters away from reaching its ending, and I don't think I'll be making another video for its finale. Of course, that doesn't mean I won't make more Kaguya videos in the future. After all, a movie depicting the next arc is in the works. And of course, there still is the possibility of a season 4. I saw those 4s in her eyes, A1, you can't fool me! Either way, I'll most definitely be back in my writer's chair once again, shouting to the world about my love for this series. For now, I'd like to thank the wonderful people at A1 Studios for transitioning the already amazing manga into a gorgeous show, the voice actors for creating a perfect rendition of these characters, and highlighting all their unique quirks, the wonderful community I've gotten to spend my time with gushing over every new piece of media release, and of course, Akasaka himself and his editors for creating such a wonderful story and heartwarming yet stupid, silly characters. But most importantly, I'd like to thank my 2 friends, Quaff and Eggs Benedict, for being the ones to finally push me into Kaguya. Without them, I would have most likely missed the series as a whole until it was too late, and everyone had stopped talking about it. All these beautiful people have come together to make Kaguya-sama my favorite series. Truth be told, I ended up writing this closer before the rest of the script, and it originally ended with me not being sure whether it was first or second compared to Fullmetal Alchemist Brotherhood. But through making this video, I've finally come to my conclusion. It's an interesting top 3 for sure, though the Dragon Ball fans won't be too happy about it. Well, it's a good thing they can't read.